Welcome back to College Recruiter, where we believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career. I'm Anna Peters, Content Manager. And today I'm joined by two experts on our panel of experts, and we're going to be diving into a very important topic, networking and building your personal brand. So job seekers out there, especially entry-level job seekers and internship seekers in college or right out of college, will get some great advice from our two experts. I'm joined today by Tony Newborn, the Diversity and Consulting Services Manager at the City of St. Paul, and by Jeff Dunn, the Campus Relations Manager at Intel. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So let's start with the terms. We're talking about networking and we're talking about personal branding. And I kind of feel like those two terms might be a little intimidating or unfamiliar to entry-level job seekers. Do either of you prefer different terms, or is that what you usually say?
Well, I think it's expanding the people that you know. It could be socializing, it could be making new friends. You know, branding is what you're known for, and networking is getting more people to know who you are. So it should be done for personal and professional reasons. I think the reason students particularly get nervous about it is they feel pressure. They feel like they have to be on, they feel they have to sell themselves, they have to smile and shake hands and have business cards. So you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself. Thinking of it as getting to know people and getting more people to become aware of who you are, what you're looking for, what you can contribute with your knowledge and skill sets. And you want to be aware of opportunities when they come up.
Yeah.
I would add to that, it's there's somewhat of a synonym, but I think the networking piece is the execution of the plan, and the personal branding is, you know, the planning part, like what is who you are, finding out, you know, how do people perceive you, who do you want to be, creating that brand or that plan, and then the networking piece is the actual execution of it. So knowing who you want to present yourself to other people, and developing those relationships. But I agree with what was said previously about especially around the intimidation of students being intimidated by both personal branding and networking, because you're having to put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. But who better than yourself to control who you put out there, and how do you develop your relationship? And I think the personal branding term is a marketing term, and oftentimes we see networking as, okay, I'm going to meet and greet with people and, you know, shake hands, and this intimidating process, but we don't see it as you're marketing yourself. And not from a weird way, but just letting people know who you are and who you want to be as a professional. And we actually do this all the time. Yeah. We just don't label it as, okay, I'm in the process of creating my personal brand, or I'm networking. We do this by just from a relationship standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So to be able to describe who you want to be, because people will ask, especially as you close out your college career, when you graduate, everyone's going to ask you, what are you going to do now? To be able to have an answer, that is your brand. So shape it. Like you said, Tony, you're the one who's in control. Mm-hmm. So where are students supposed to start? What is the easiest way to build your personal brand and start networking?
I think the easiest way is to start by figuring out what you're looking for. You may not know exactly what you want to be when you grow up, but have some idea. You don't want to be too broad, because then people can't really help you. If you have some focus, at least to start off with, then you're able to go into a networking situation, and whether it's social media or whether it's face-to-face, and be able to tell people, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for. So they can direct you to certain companies, certain departments, certain jobs, certain people in their networks. The more targeted you are, the easier it is for people to help you.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. Starting out, you know, who do you want to be? I encourage students to start with what I call a bucket list, and not from a standpoint of what you want to be, you know, do in like the next 50 years, but like create buckets or categories of what you're interested in. And okay, for me, I like event planning. I'm nosy. I like doing investigations and finding out more things and information about people.
So curious, when I was looking, not nosy.
Yes, curious. That's a better word. That's a nicer word. But those are things that I wrote down. All of these skills are my strengths, so to speak. And I wrote down things that I was interested in areas of the law or areas of employment or HR that I was interested in. And then, like we said earlier, forming a somewhat of a plan, identifying and a focus. Figuring out what you like, what you don't like, where you want to be, what would be your best working environment. And then from there, I think, for students, networking starts within the classroom. Who are your classmates? And then who lives if you're staying on campus, who's in your dorm? Meeting their friends. And so, going to social events and meeting friends of friends. It starts, simply there. And then you build upon, okay, now after you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your interests are, then start going to putting yourself in environments where other people who also have those same strengths or interests are there. So whether it's a student group, whether it's whether it actually is some sort of networking meeting, or it's a professional setting, you're tagging along with your parents, starting from home, or your friends' parents who are in an area that you're interested in. And so the networking can start obviously from knowing who you are first, and then moving to putting yourself in those environments where there are like-minded people or people who have similar interests as you.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you one more question, and then we'll wrap up and we can dive in again with another segment. But so last question for today. One thing I'm a big fan of is informational interviews, and actually, Tony, that's how you and I met.
Yes.
And so if you could describe very briefly, what would be a formula for going into an informational interviews? Because again, that can be kind of intimidating for someone who's never done it before. What should somebody have in their head? Like, how should this play out? What's a formula for a good informational interview?
Well, I think one thing, especially for students or entry-level job seekers that don't have a lot of experience, a good question to ask is, how did you get started in the field? Because they're worried they don't have experience. So finding out what path other people took to get into the field is a great place to start. In an informational interview, you're asking the questions. So you've prepared a list of questions. You want to know, like, what is the typical job week like? What are the duties? You want to know what the work culture's like. What does success look like? If you come into the job and you're dazzling everyone, what measurable outcomes have you achieved? What are the key skills that they're looking for on a resume from a person, not just experience, but knowledge, skills, and interest? And by the way, you can also ask for salary ranges. You're not hitting them up for a job. You're gathering data. You're doing research, and you may come back to them a month later and knock on their door. But you get to ask the questions. You get to see, is this an industry and an employer that might interest you?
Jeff, do you do informational interviews with candidates?
I sure do.
Great. At Intel?
Absolutely.
And I would just add to what Jeff said. First thing is, you're going in for an informational interview. You're not going in for a job interview. And so,
right.
You may be, this may be your opportunity. You may be thinking in your mind, okay, if I don't get a job soon, I can't pay my bills. So you may be at a point of desperation and you may be at a point of where this is something that you need, but you don't want that to come off in this informational interview. And you don't want to put the employer in a position where they feel bad and they feel like they need to, or you're here to get a job and that they need to hire you. You want them to feel like at the end of it that either I want to hire this person, or I want to help this person in a job, whether in my company or in another institution or another organization. And so, as Jeff said, a informational interview is just that, information. You're gathering information about, it's your opportunity to find out the culture of the company. And what's good is that the difference between an informational interview and an actual interview is that of course you need to be on your P's and Q's, but you can be in a position of where you're asking the questions instead of the employer asking you questions about yourself. You can do the information gathering on the particular company and see if it's worth your while and whether you actually want to be there versus the tables being switched. And so it's a great opportunity. And if you keep it low key and not a lot of pressure for yourself and on the employer, you can actually, it could be very valuable. You can get the information and gather the information that you're looking for to better assess whether you actually do want to apply for a job and work within that company.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point to make, is to know that the informational interview is actually flipped. The job seeker is the one who should be asking the question. You're the one who's gathering information. So it's even more reason to be prepared, right? Bring your questions with you.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't we leave it at that for now, and then we can jump back on to another segment and continue the conversation. So thank you for being with us, both of you, and we will we'll touch base.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.